All right. We're moving on to agenda item 9.0, which is action items. Do I hear a motion to accept the administration's recommendation to rename the new Lexington Middle School campus to Lakeside Middle School?
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to rename the Lexington Middle School campus to Lakeside Middle School.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? Mr. Salters, would you like to provide any information for us at this point?
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll just direct your attention to our screens. We just recap briefly, have Mr. Calhoun here, the principal of the current Lexington Middle School, and he will be the principal of this replacement facility as well. And just kind of remind you of the process. Of course, administrative rule FF-R governs the naming of schools, and that falls under your purview. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Calhoun here for a brief summary of kind of how we got to this point as a reminder. Again, we talked about this last board meeting, but I want to just put this back out in front of everyone if you don't mind.
Good evening, board. Thank you. And so just quickly summary, this is really a grassroots effort that came from us. It's coming from really from our families and the students that we currently serve and will serve for the next, however long, 50, 60 years. And so as we think about that, this came from our SIC. This came from our athletic families and our arts families. And just as I continue from the last time we had a conversation, I would say informal conversations that have come through my way are 25 to 30. And it's just, hey, Mr. County, I saw this happen, and I am so excited. We're so excited about this vision and that kind of thing. And the overall support for this, we say 80% in here of this, and there's certainly some people who have some tradition and love the Lexington Middle as we do, but we want to certainly honor that. But there's an overwhelming support in our community as far as the Lexington Middle School current attendance zone to really move forward in this direction. The other things I just want to remind you guys that we talked about is like this need of honoring Lexington Middle School through both as Jeff and I have walked through in the last month, some feedback and things like the current building that was Lexington High and then Lexington Middle, and all the things that has been and how we can do that as we transition out, but also then just honoring the history of the culture of Lexington Middle School. And so, that was part of every group that we talked to. We talked about there's really no connection history-wise to kind of name for a namesake. And then we took that information and we developed some names that from our stakeholders. And so those four names that we gave you before: Lake Murray Middle School, Lakeside Middle School, North Lake Middle School, and then River Bluff Middle School.
And so again, tonight, after considering all the feedback that we've received throughout the course of this process and the feedback from the community that Mr. Calhoun just talked about, we're again recommending this be second and final reading to name the new facility Lakeside Middle School, preserving the LMS, lettering there, but also, some key elements of the history of Lexington Middle School would be, moved into this facility. We had some conversations about, what's going to happen to all the trophies with the Lexington Middle School name on them and those kinds of things. And those will be protected and displayed here at this facility going forward in the future. And also there'll be some, I'm sure, some opportunities to display those things as well over at the current facility because it will be repurposed, and as we talked about in our bond referendum program early on, and will continue to serve students in some fashion here in Lexington District 1. So that way I'm happy to answer any questions of Mr. Calhoun as well.
Board, are there any questions or comments that you would like to make?
It seems like we do get this question a fair amount as far as choosing a mascot, that nothing is selected tonight regarding that, correct? This is just simply the renaming of the school, and then any mascotting that occurs comes at a later date with additional input, those kind of things. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And again, remind the group, Mr. Calhoun, how this started. My understanding, at least as a board member, is I was approached about a request to consider renaming just because of the feeder zones. And so I think this started as a request from our community. And obviously, that request isn't unanimous, and that's where the struggle is. But I appreciate us being methodical and asking for input and building consensus. Because again, we need to represent the majority, even if we can't, represent everyone, so to speak.
Powers, I appreciate that. It absolutely was a grassroots from the people. I think I mentioned before a meeting where Dr. Little, we had literally you guys had just approved the land purchase. And I can assure you, on Casey's mind, there's no like, oh, now we get to go rename something. This was, hey, Dr. Little, you got this land, what's the new name? And from there, it kind of like, okay, and then from that point, well, we need to gather feedback from our people. We need to hear what they got. You need to hear what community members say. And yeah, it's not a unanimous in any decision, but overwhelmingly that has come from our own stakeholders, our people who got elementary kids coming up, as that feeder pattern now feeds River Bluff solely. That certainly has come from them, and feel like that's kind of as we move forward, a recommendation. It's to represent the families that are in the building now and to come.
And I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I know it wasn't on my radar, and I don't think it was on any other board member's radar, a name change. But as our community has advocated for it, we have to respond to that. So,
thank you.
And Dr. Powers, I would say, just kind of a firsthand experience. Pre-COVID, when my daughter would go to her cheerleading competitions, she was a Beechwood cheerleader, and of course they typically stick around and cheer for the team that they feed into, if you will. And so, you would have them all kind of grouped together, and it just visually looked odd when you had Lexington Middle School girls who were wearing the blue and gold cheerleading outfits, and they were sitting before the River Bluff cheering for them as their varsity team that they feed into. It even visually felt a little clunky. And so, I definitely saw that sort of firsthand. So I think obviously a correct move.
I'll quickly mention, Dr. Little and I have had a conversation. There's something about the Lexington brand, and that's statewide known. I mean, if you go around, if I wear my L, hey, you work at Lexington High School? Because the incredible accomplishments that have come through there. And so we're not trying to take away. It's just, as we move in a different direction, we really do feel like there's a rebrand that's just necessary through that.
Well, and I just want to add, so, my heart is Lexington Middle School. I attended there. My family moved to Lexington, and Lexington High School was still in that building. The next year, it switched over to Lexington Middle School when the new high school opened. I attended there. My mother taught there. So many of the former teachers there, retired teachers, are some of my favorite people on the planet, and I've talked to a lot of them through this. And there is, nostalgia and heritage and history is very important. But I really feel what you've relayed to us, just this strong passion that the current students and the current families and the up-and-coming students and families have expressed about wanting this identity that belongs to them. It's been very persuasive. And so, there's an emotional part of it that's, is kind of hard. But I also really feel like it's important for us to respond to the students that we're serving now. Anyone else with any conversation or comments? All right, board, we have a motion. Dr. Guyton, would you mind reading the motion again?
Yes, I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to rename the new Lexington Middle School campus to Lakeside Middle School.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much.